Alrighty, it says we are live, so holler if you hear me. But we got R Moody in the house from Kentucky, B Lynn from Mississippi, Anna. Okay, I've been wondering how to actually pronounce your last name. Is it Kozlowski? But you're from Northern Illinois. We got what's up, Forrest Smith from Alabama, and then Dad over there with from Permaculture's farm. We got Forrest Smith from Alabama, and then we got Kenneth Sword in the house. What's up? How's it going, y'all? So Dad, since Dad is actually in the chat, I guess I should bring up the Homestead Jamboree. Me, Emily, and the baby are going to be at the Homestead Jamboree at the end of August. We'll be there, and apparently, according to Dad, we're going to be processing a whole ecosystem. And then, like Dad said in the chat, hit the thumbs up whenever y'all come in, and it'll let everybody else know that we are doing a live chat here tonight. Also, should say that this Saturday we're going to be doing a homestead meetup. I'm going to be doing that with the Texas boys. It's going to be at the Bob Wells Nursery over in, I think it's Mineola, but it's in the Longview, Gilmer, Pittsburgh area of Texas. So if you're in East Texas, come check it out. Let's take a look from the chat. Hidden Oasis Homestead, what's up? I'll see you guys right after the Homestead Jamboree, actually. Hey, what's going on, Vicky Savage? And then, yo, it's Rex. Yo, it's up from upstate South Carolina. Oh, there's a few of you guys that are actually from South Carolina. Yo, it's Rex and Hidden Oasis Homestead. You guys probably aren't too far away from each other, but everything over there on that East Coast isn't that far from each other. But yeah, excited to be doing a live stream. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Let me know if there's like an echo in this room. I haven't done a live stream in this room yet. So let me know how the audio is showing up. Let me know how the video is showing up. If there's any issues, we should have some pretty good Wi-Fi here, which is rare because since I moved to Texas, I've been having to go up to like drive to town to upload videos. But since moving here, I've been able to upload everything from here. So it's awesome. And then Mom's in the house. Mom says everything sounds fine. So does DE. How's it going, guys? Also, if you have any permaculture Q&A questions that you guys want answered in the chat, then let me know. That's what today is the live permaculture Q&A. Until any questions pop up, I was going to tell you guys about some of the upcoming content that's coming. And I try to pay attention to your guys' comments and get, content ideas from you guys' contents. So that way, like, I'm making videos that you guys actually want to see. So tomorrow there will actually be an EDC update as far as like your everyday carry and all that stuff. So that's coming out tomorrow. There have been some changes to the EDC, especially when it comes to a holster, like a concealed carry holster. There's been some changes to the EDC since the last video that I did. What else? Oh, this was based off of a permaculture Q&A question from the last video. They were asking, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it's Crab Aesthetics. Was it Crab Aesthetics? I can't remember. But they were asking, like, is it feasible to scythe an entire acre? And yeah, you definitely can. It's just going to take a long time. There's Chloe in the background. Emily and June, I think, just got home from their apothecary trip. So if you hear any noise in the background, then that's what's going on there. They're back a little early, apparently. But that's what the noise is in the background. I'm going to scythe the whole backyard here at the urban demonstration site. And then, hey, what's up, JD Anderson? He said hello from DCAB, right down the road. And then also the scythe repair video. So I got two scythes, one from Craigslist and I think another one from an estate sale. They're both in like varying degrees of decay. So I'm going to bring those guys back. And then I was planning on like flipping them and seeing if anybody wanted them, like from the viewership and stuff. But I think I'm just going to keep these guys because one of them is a backup grass blade that doesn't have a break where it connects into the snathe. And then another one is actually an angled ditch blade. And it's cool because it, like if you have a scythe, it's angled in a way so where you're holding it, it's flat to the ground or pretty close to flat to the ground. Well, the ditch blade is angled steeper, so that way if you're holding it, it creates, I don't know, like an obtuse angle, or no, I guess it would be an acute angle to the ground, but it's best if you have like a ditch you're swinging down into. So that'll be pretty doggone cool. I think I'll be keeping both of those. So sorry about that. But yeah, those are 3 videos that are going to be coming up here before too long. A lot of people were also interested in doing like transitioning the front and backyard into clover. That's going to have to wait till probably gets a little bit cooler in the season. If I do it right now, like right now, it's the Weather Channel I think says it feels like 100 and some degrees outside, and they're not wrong. There was a video that I did, I think, was it yesterday? I think I uploaded it yesterday, where all I'm doing is walking around and talking on the camera, doing a permaculture Q&A, and I was already sweaty from that. But yeah, Emily, if you can hear me, you can bring the baby in if you want to. They're back early from the apothecary thing, so I don't know. Everything okay? Yeah, let me see the baby. Bring the baby. Yeah, everybody wants to see the baby. Oh, Chloe, get back. It's a family affair now. Well, come on in.
Oh my.
Say hi to everybody. Hi there, sweetie. Oh, goodness. You're just smiling for everybody, too.
She's like, what?
Yeah, what's happening? That's you. And that's Mama. And that's me. Yeah.
She's like,
you don't know what to think, do you? It's a little hot in here, isn't it? Yeah. I just got done telling everybody that it's been 100 or feels like 103 out recently. You don't have to stick around if you don't want to. Are you back early for a reason?
The class just got done early.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. How was the apothecary class?
It's very fun. Yeah, she's going to be doing one every month. So I'm hoping to go, to all of them.
Learn how to make some salves. What'd you make?
I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a Amish syrup.
Is it like edible? You ingest it? Okay.
Yeah. It's just lemon, onion, honey, and a blackberry bourbon or brandy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's good.
So
June, you guys will see this actually in the 75 hard update that we thought she was teething at first, and then it turns out she had ear infections. So we got those squared away. But the past couple of days, neither one of us had really gotten any sleep until she finally got some. She's on antibiotics now. She's feeling obviously a whole lot better. She's got some stuff to say about it too.
She was talking a lot at the class too.
Was she?
Yeah.
Well, I can hold her if you have stuff to do.
Look at her.
It's just a sleepy baby. Maybe not.
She's tired.
All right. Sorry. She's gonna have to go back with her mama.
I'm gonna go get a bath.
All right. See
bye-bye.
you guys later. Say bye. Before she gets fussy. All right. And then Mom, of course, is in the comments. Everybody's saying they want to see the baby.
Mom's.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Let's see if there are any questions in the comment section. I haven't been paying attention. This one's from B. Lynn. You want to answer this one, June? Should I wait to plant a couple of small apple trees started from seed until fall? That is my inclination, but want to hear your thoughts. Yes, you should definitely wait until, fall, until actually not even fall. Because let's say, B. Lynn, where are you from? Mississippi? I think you are from Mississippi. But you want to, Mississippi. You want to make sure that, because fall might actually hit before your trees start dropping leaves, before everything starts going dormant. So I would wait until everything has gone dormant before planting your trees. That's why whenever you order some of your bare root trees, depending on where they're from, they might come in like January or February because the trees haven't gone dormant until about then. And that's whenever they usually pluck them up to harvest. But also that's when you want to put your trees in, because Dad, fill me in if I'm wrong, but Dr. Charles Whitcomb from Oklahoma State University discovered that 70% of the root growth happens when the tree has gone dormant. So you can either plant it whenever the top is going to grow, or you can plant it when the bottom is going to grow. So there's that. I would definitely wait until the leaves started falling from your trees, and then make sure also that you mulch around the base of your tree. So if you have any compost, put down compost first, and then a layer of cardboard down, and then your mulch on top of that, water everything in, and then you should be good to go. And then you'll be shocked at how quickly everything grows that next following spring. But yeah, everybody's saying little baby's cute. Thanks, guys. This one is from Forrest Smith, tech tip for rural internet. If you can get a Verizon signal, check out Visible, $25 a month, unlimited hotspot without slowing down. I've been using for over 3 years to stream TV, internet, computer. That's awesome. The downside is not of that necessarily, but downside of a lot of those rural internet things is that everybody focuses on the download speeds, because that's what most people are just doing, is downloading stuff from the internet, whether it be YouTube, Netflix, Instagram, all the social medias, anything you're doing online is kind of downloading. I'm specifically uploading, and nobody sells internet based on upload speeds, because people uploading content are very, very like minor in comparison to the people downloading content. I don't know why there is a difference between download and upload. I don't know like what all is involved with internet. But yeah, so there's a little behind the scenes thing. J Bar S Photography, finally getting to catch you live. I'm always working, so I never get to never can, but got done today early. Anyway, awesome. North Central Texas. So you know exactly what heat is like. North Central, it might be humid, it might not be humid. I'm not sure. I don't know of anyone who doesn't get cranky when they're tired. Yeah, the baby is pretty doggone tired right now. I have a pound of pawpaw seeds in the fridge. When will be a good time to plant them? Okay, so the first thing, and that's from Vicky Savage, the first thing I would ask is, I guess the first thing I would look up is whether or not the pawpaw seeds need to be stratified, which stratification is basically like a stress process that the seed has to go through before it can actually break that hull and start germinating. For example, like black locust seeds, they need to be scratched with some sandpaper, and that could be replicating, like going through the digestive system of an animal, being roughed up a little bit and then coming out the other end and then dropping in the ground and then, doing its thing there. So I would first check to see if they need to be stratified at all. If they need to be cold stratified, then it looks like you're already taking care of that, depending on how cold your fridge is. But I would plant those. You could plant them really, I would say maybe early spring, if you're doing it in pots. I don't know that they would really pop up if you planted them in the fall, unless you did it on the inside. But first, check out like your stratification, what it needs, what the pawpaw seeds need for stratification, and then go based off that. But if you're putting them in pots, then I would put them in during the spring. If you're putting them in the ground outside, then I would put them in the fall. But I would also try to protect them in a way so where your squirrels and your chipmunks and all those guys that are up in the Ozarks aren't going to mess with that. This one's from Kenneth Sword, Wu-Tang. Bone sauce. Besides deer, any other critters it has worked on to deter? So the list that I'm going to give you is a little bit bigger than what the list Dad would give you from Permaculture Farm, who is the one that makes bone sauce. He guarantees it for only deer, but I've had reports back saying that it works on deer, it works on rabbits, it works on chipmunks, it works on squirrels, all that type of stuff. It's just he doesn't guarantee that because he hasn't personally used it for that. Another thing is like people who apply it to their trunks and then it rains and some of it rinses down and hits the mulch area around your tree or the soil around your tree. It seems to keep away voles and moles and all those guys as well. So it's kind of hard to test that. But for example, the food forest down at my parents' place at the bottom of the property down there, Chloe, get sorry, that was the dog. The only tree that I think that has died from vole pressure was a black locust that didn't have any bone sauce on it. And at that point, when it was planted, I don't think it needed bone sauce because everything else was kind of keeping the deer away and keeping that tree protected. But the black locusts were the ones that didn't get bone sauce, and they were the ones that had vole pressure come in. So that's the animals that I know of it works on. We also had an email that one time saying they were keeping wild bulls away in Hawaii. So that's pretty interesting. This one's from Jacob H. Is there a permaculture way to raise animals without moving / rotational grazing? Chickens, pigs specifically. Cheers from Texas Gulf Coast. So you might have to bring in some wolves and have some large acreage, because rotational grazing and moving the animals frequently is just replicating nature. So let's take it back like before Columbus, before the Vikings, all that stuff, and just Native America with the bison and all that stuff. The bison roaming the Great Plains, they're, marching along every single day. What's following behind them are the deer, the antelope, the birds, or like the native fowl and stuff like that. That's all following behind them. And what's behind that is actually a predator that's kind of pushing everything along. They're following them along. They're following them through their, yearly rotation, sometimes 2-year rotation. And that's what's moving them every single day. Also, as they're also triggering like a mob grazing mentality, because there's so many of them. They're just marching forward and eating everything that's coming in their path. That's what you want to mimic if you're trying to, boost your pasture forage growth, your pasture forage density. For every year that you do that correctly, you can increase your forage density 300%. You can also increase the organic matter in your soil. Every 1%, that's another Olympic-sized swimming pool per acre. You guys have heard Dad say that a lot, from Permapastures Farm again. But yeah, it's important to keep them moving, and it's important to keep them rotating through pasture. Now, as far as pigs and chickens go, they're both going to go to their favorite spots. And if your pigs are anything like my pigs, then they're going to go to right now, this time of year, they're going to favor the shady areas. So whenever I'm feeding my pigs in a new pasture or anything, I'm putting it on stuff that might be a little direct in the sun, but it's areas that they're not hitting by themselves. Part of the reason is because their paddock is kind of big. And I'm doing that intentionally because I want them to have plenty of space. I don't ever want them to get bored with that paddock. And it's also going to have a very, very long rest period, which is a key in the rotational grazing, is that rest period. If the heavier the impact that you have, the longer the rest period needs to be. So keep that in mind whenever you're, moving your chickens and pigs. That being said, there are ways to keep your both chickens and pigs stationary. Your chickens, you could do a chicken tractor on steroid system and have them start producing a cubic yard of compost every single week after the 4th week. And your pigs, you can also do what Jason from Sow the Land did, where he had like a stationary carport, and then he fenced in the outside, and then he just did a deep litter method and just kept adding wood chips over and over again. Anytime there was any kind of accumulation of manure, he would just add wood chips on top of that. And at the end of it, by the time he processed his pigs, he had a whole bunch of starting material for compost or for mulch for your trees and stuff like that. So there are ways to keep them stationary. It just requires work in a different way. Like, you're not going to take away the human element from managing these systems. So hopefully that gives you an idea of like some of the possibilities and some of the reasons why moving and rotation is so important. And if you're not going to do that, then you have to introduce carbon to the scenario, which is perfectly fine. It just all depends on your application and what you're trying to get out of it. Let's see what other questions we have. J Bar S Photography. So, okay, since this is a Q&A, here's a question. I'm not new to gardening, but for some reason I cannot get anything to produce like I know it can. I'm doing something wrong, obviously. That's where Eric Sider's shirt, always the ABCs, always be composting, kind of comes into play. And I would say that's probably the issue, is that you're not making compost, or you're making compost with maybe inferior methods. And I don't mean that in a bad way. But I think that might be the only solution to what you got going on right now. It's not producing like it could. Yeah, that's just where really good composting comes into play, because that composting is going to give you like back-to-back bumper crops. It's not going to give you you're not going to, if you have really good compost and you have really good soil, you shouldn't get to a point where you're like disappointed by the harvest. You know what I mean? So I would check that out. There's a bunch of different composting videos on YouTube, and I got to say, a lot of them are garbage. One of the benefits of doing the specific composting that we do is that it eliminates the weed seeds and it eliminates the pathogens. The high temperatures, they eliminate weed seeds and they eliminate pathogens. So if you're battling any of that type of stuff, whether it be pathogens or weed seeds, or you're just not getting that much production, then check out like a hot composting method with a curing time on the end. Before, whenever I first started doing composting and I first started doing composting videos on like hot composting, I wouldn't let it rest at first because I learned from Jeff Lawton, and Jeff Lawton was like, yeah, let's immediately put it on the garden beds, just constantly make compost and apply it to the raised beds in the main crop and in the kitchen garden and anywhere else. since then, I've learned that, hey, I can get way more bang for my buck if I just let it rest after making the compost. And that came from Dr. Elaine Ingham from Soil Food Web. So check out her information if you want to learn how to make really, really good compost. If you don't use a hot composting method, then your starting ingredients have to be like impeccable. They have to be super clean. Excuse me. No pathogens, no weed seeds or anything like that, or else you're just going to have some issues. Let's move on to another one. I have one raised bed this year and it's full. I have painted a line around the top of it. That's from Vicky Savage. I think she's talking about the bone sauce. But it's too hot for anything to grow, or should I just shade cloth for everything I'm trying to grow? So that's from J-Bar Photography, and I think that's in reference to the gardening. Maybe that could be in it. That could be it. I'm not sure where you are, but you might need to apply a shade cloth. Also, maybe your watering is a little bit off. Like if you're watering in the middle of the day, I don't think that's necessarily good for your plants to get water just in the middle of the day with full sunshine coming down. Think of when nature tries to water, the earth during rain events and the sun is gone, so it's shaded, or in the morning or nighttime dew, like overnight, whenever the water from the air kind of settles on the ground and then settles on the soil and stuff like that. So try to mimic those if at all possible, like maybe water early in the morning, water late at night, and maybe that'll help. If you have everything on a timer, then that might be an easy fix. Let's see what else is going on. Double A, I think you just missed it. Yes, how's the growing baby? Oh, how's it growing, buddy? Sorry about that. I misread that. Everything's doing good. Everything's awesome. The baby, so you guys will see this actually in the 75 hard update. But and I mentioned this earlier, but we have some new people on. The baby, we thought she was teething really, really bad, and she kind of developed some flu symptoms. And we were like looking online, and apparently that isn't uncommon. Turns out she actually had an ear infection. We got her some antibiotics. She's good to go as far as that goes now. So we're all getting sleep. So yeah, last night I think was the first night we all got some like solid sleep in the past quite a few days. Got one from Nazri Williams. In the Midwest, I am seeking to have a flower garden alongside edible plants. Is there a way to serve both edible plants and a beautiful flower garden? Absolutely. So let's say you have a raised bed. And before we answer this, I got to get a drink of water. All right. Sorry about that. So let's think of how you can plant both of those, the edible plants and the beautiful flower garden, in the same beds. Let's say you have a raised bed and it's 4 feet wide, or let's say 5 feet wide in this example, 5 feet wide, and it's, let's say, 40 feet long. What you could do, because that third foot that's in the dead center of that raised bed is going to be kind of difficult to reach to without bending over, which is, anybody who's had to do that on their raised beds understands that raised bed design is pretty important, and it shouldn't be any wider than 4 feet, because that's about what you can reach to comfortably on either side. So if you're using that third foot that's in the center, you could use that to plant your flower garden, that middle row, plant your flower garden there, and then plant your food on either side of that flower garden. That way you have easy access to any food that's growing, and then the beautiful flower garden, you don't really have to worry about maintaining unless you're doing cut flowers, which is going to be very minimal, like reaching over into the middle of that bed. Another thing you could do is, let's say you have a raised bed up against the side of your house. The side that's up against your house, you could do your flowers there, and then your edible stuff, on the side that's away from your house, closer to you if you're walking alongside of the raised bed. So those are just some examples. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how you can kind of combine two and use the same space. Cool thing about those flower garden plants is that a lot of them can bring in beneficial insects and pollinator insects for your food plants as well, your edible plants. So yeah, that's a little permaculture design, and taking the people care aspect into consideration. This one is from DE, best breed of rabbit to raise around College Station. Tamuk also discussed best hutch options. So that's going to be kind of dependent. As far as best breed of rabbit to raise, it kind of depends if you're doing it based off meat or if you're doing it off of a pelt. Like your plain white pelts aren't going to fetch you a whole lot of money. But usually those plain white pelts coming from, I think, your Californians or your New Zealands are bigger rabbits and they're going to produce more meat. So if you're looking to do the meat, then yeah, Tamuk would be an awesome. I actually just heard about those not too long ago. I don't know if they developed by Texas A&M or something like that to eat off pasture. I can't remember, but yeah, those would be good. New Zealand, California, those would all be good. Any rabbit you can still eat. It just kind of depends on the application. If you're just eating it yourself, then you can kind of raise whatever rabbit you want to. If you plan on selling it to, let's say, restaurants or farmers markets or direct to consumer or anything like that, then you kind of want to focus on the breeds that are going to produce the most meat and provide like a bigger body or a bigger carcass to eat. So Tamuk would be a good idea, but anything that is doing well and is mimicking the way you want to raise it is going to be in your area is going to be the best route. So Daniel Salatin, Joel Salatin's son, he made pretty decent money from raising rabbits, selling it direct to consumer and also to restaurants. So that being said, he did a lot of line breeding in order to get rabbits that would graze on pasture, that would eat stuff that isn't just brought to them and is like a wider variety of things other than just like Timothy hay and then those just whatever you can buy at Tractor Supply, like millet pellets and stuff like that. So I would try more than anything, I would try to focus on buying a breed or buying from someone who's mimicking the way you want to run it. You could do just like standard rabbit hutches that are elevated and you bring all the food to them if you want to do it that way. Or you could do like the Daniel Salatin rabbit tractors and just tractor them through your pasture and let them free range on what they can, what they can reach within that rabbit tractor. Either one. If you do the rabbit tractor method, then I would definitely check out. I would try to find somebody who's mimicking that method as well. Got one from Matt Wood. Yo, checking in from Ezel, Kentucky. Enjoying a heavy thunderstorm right now. Wow. B. Lynn says, I like Tamuk. So am I pronouncing that even right? Tamuk? Tamuk? I don't know. Jacob H. Great info. Thanks for the answer. No problem. DE, mulch made the most difference in the garden this year. Okay, so that's a good point. Mulch is a good way to develop your like using really any kind of mulch is a good way to develop your soil microbes. What I did this year was used a living mulch of clover. And that seems to be the best, way to transition from really crappy soil to decent soil. I haven't had too many pest issues. I've had some. By no means is the soil perfect in the raised beds over there. But that clover also made it to a point, it brought the soil conditioning to a point where it was uninhabitable by ants anymore, like fire ants. Because there's fire ants all the way. There were fire ants in the raised beds. They eventually left as the soil changed. But there are fire ants all the way around on the perimeter of the raised beds. So like in the walking paths, anywhere there's high compaction and low soil life, that's where the fire ants exist. So I have this theory, and I've mentioned it before, that you either have you either have worms or you have ants, and they're both kind of serving the same purpose. If you look at like ant hills, they have those aggregates that you want like the worms to form in the future in later progressions. But yeah, I think ants serve a purpose up until a point, and then they're replaced by worms. I don't remember why we even got to that point. Oh yeah, the clover is the only amendment that I've done to the garden, and that soil conditioning is getting better and better and better. Let's see what else is here. Austin Trees. I live in Ohio, Zone 6A. Would like to dig a pit and customize the soil mix to grow sweet potatoes in a bathtub-sized area, then cover it in the winter with straw and wood chips. What soil mixture? Oh man, I know sweet potatoes like sandy soil, that they do well in loose sandy soil. So I would try to mimic something like that. So maybe make some really good compost, get some sand, some sharp sand, and then get some maybe peat moss, kind of mix everything together that way water everything in, maybe even let it sit a little bit. So that way the compost has time to inoculate the sand and the peat moss. And then you should have a pretty good mix. And then the ratios, I'm guessing, would be like 50% compost, 25% peat moss, and then 25% sand. And I think you should have some good results with that. If you need it looser, then kind of just adjust accordingly. Either make it looser with compost or peat moss, one of the two. And then you should get a pretty good mix that way. Let's see what else is here. A budding enthusiast. I have an abundance of wood chips from work. If there is a good amount of leaf matter, would that be good to compost? If there is a good amount of leaf matter, would that be good to compost? Also, I'm in arid Las Vegas. Yeah, wood chips. Okay, so wood chips are super, super high in carbon, like 300 to 500 to 1. And the ideal ratio of carbon to nitrogen for your compost is about 25 or 30 to 1. So you have to figure out a way to lower, if you're trying to make compost, you can make fortified mulch pretty easily with just those two ingredients, the leaf matter and the wood chips. But if you're looking to make compost, then you're going to need to, well, it's just not going to work. It's going to take a very, very long time in order to turn those wood chips into full-blown compost. You can get composted material on the outside of those wood chips and make fortified wood mulch and apply those to the base of your trees or even as a mulch in your garden, but you're not going to get like potting soil degree of texture in that compost. So what I would do in that scenario, I would still get the wood chips and I would still get the leaf matter. It's just the leaf matter, I might focus more on I might use the leaf matter let me, hold on. If there is a good amount of leaf matter, would that be good to compost as well? So I'm assuming maybe the leaf matter is like mixed in with the wood chips. If that's the case, then I would just let it decompose, flip it every once in a while, add water, make sure you maintain the moisture and stuff like that. Make sure it's not too wet, which is not going to be a problem in Las Vegas, but make sure it's not too dry and going just dry on you, because that'll be, the opposite effect you want on your decomposing wood chips. But that would be a really good material to put down over the top of compost, that fortified mulch. So hopefully that answers your question. That was a little bit all over the place. Sorry about that. Let's see what else. Vicky Savage has a good point that hot compost is also good for animal products and human excrement. I will vouch for the animal products, not for the human excrement all the time. There's a correct way to do human manure, and then there's a very, very incorrect way to do human manure. And hot composting is definitely the way to go if you are using human manure, but also if you're using like pharmaceuticals or anything like that, if you're on any kind of prescriptions, then I'd be very, very cautious about using human excrement in your compost, because it's only going to compound and it's only going to become more intense, and it's going to translate over to your food. So be careful with that. Got another one from J Bar S Photography. Okay, sorry for all the questions. Nope, that's exactly what we're here for. But you're bringing things up I have questions for. Anyhow, I water in the late evening for about 45 minutes on a timer. Should I water every day? So depending on your design will dictate whether or not you need to water that frequently. I haven't watered my garden over at the demonstration site since March, or maybe even April. Somewhere around there, I haven't watered it. And the reason for that is because I have that living cover crop that's maintaining soil moisture. So if you have a cover crop or if you have a mulch, maybe the water is a little bit too much and it's actually saturating your plants, which can cause anaerobic conditions. And if you're saturating your soil, it can cause anaerobic conditions and can be counterproductive to what you're trying to get done. So keep that in mind. I would just kind of monitor it. Like if you have any pooling water in your bed, 45 minutes seems like a long time. If you have any pooling water in your bed, then that could be an issue. Then that would be an indicator of oversaturation. So maybe bring it back down to like 15 minutes. And it's on a timer. Yeah, maybe bring it back down to 15 minutes. Because it's not evaporating from that direct sunlight, you could be keeping the water in place for too long. 45 minutes might make sense if you're doing it in the morning and you need that water to last throughout the rest of the day. Maybe make some of those adjustments. Vicky Savage, most people don't understand how much work it is to talk a lot, like public speaking. Been there, done that. You are doggone right. There's very few things that make you more exhausted than speaking all day at a festival. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Definitely come up and talk to me if you see me at a festival. But it's like the processing animals effect. Like, you might not have worked very hard to process animals, but anytime you kill and process an animal, it just wipes it out of you at the end of the day. You just sleep like a baby that night. Same thing with like public speaking. I kind of gotten to the point now where I don't really get nervous before speaking because I know what it is I'm talking about. And I don't mean that in like a cocky way or an arrogant way or anything. It's just the more you know about a particular subject that you're about to speak about in front of a bunch of people, the more comfortable you are with speaking about that particular subject. But yeah, it does take it out of you. It really does. And also the mental gymnastics you have to do to bounce between topic to topic. So yeah, very good point, Vicky. Austin Trees, I thought pawpaw seeds were like tropical seeds where they need to be planted right away. I don't think that's the case with pawpaw trees, but I could be wrong. I've never actually started pawpaw trees from seed before. Striving for simplicity, Alice and Renee. Renee from Northern Victoria, Australia. When companion planting, can you plant the same plant in a similar area here after a year? I think you mean year after year. So, traditionally they would say no. And if you look at the app that I recommend to everybody, the Gardenate app, Garden ATE, all one word, they would say no, you need to rotate your crops and stuff like that. I would argue if you have very, very alive soil and you maintain the soil fertility, then you should be able to plant the same plant over and over and over again, because you're not lacking. Like, the nutrients are derived from the soil life going and breaking down inorganic material. That's where the nutrients are derived from. And you don't necessarily need to look at the pool of nutrients that are available. You need to look at the the organisms that are responsible for creating that pool. If the organisms are present, then your plants are going to get everything that they need. You're not going to run, if you run out of nutrients in the soils because you've ran out of like inorganic material, and you might have bigger issues because it's 100% organic material, and that's, not going to be good. But yeah, your soil organisms derive all of the nutrients the plant needs, and the organisms know what the plant needs based on the aggregates, or not the aggregates, the sugars, I can't think of the word right now. This is part of how hard it is to publicly speak. But yeah, the sugars that the plants are dropping down into the soil come with a recipe list of what that plant needs in exchange for the in exchange for the sugar. So as long as you have soil organisms, you should be able to plant the same plant in the same beds year after year after year. The only time I would say maybe don't do that is if whatever you're planting requires digging up, which is going to create some level of compaction. I would let the organisms decompact the area before recompacting it again by digging up whatever it is you're trying to dig up. That being said, if you're giving, like the raised beds that I have over the property, 2 of them are growing sweet potatoes. I wouldn't have an issue growing sweet potatoes in those beds again next year, because it's going to be about 6 months before I plant sweet potatoes in it again. So that's going to give plenty of time for the cover crop that I have to decompact the soil, as well as the soil organisms. So hopefully that answers your question. If you want more information on soil biology, then I would check out Dr. Elaine Ingham over at Soil Food Web. Let's look at what else. Pawpaw seeds will die if they are allowed to dry out. That's from Vicky Savage. Okay, then I would adjust accordingly. I would plant them during the rainy season then. Leela Woodby. Hey, William, when should I transplant my native raspberry plants? Moving from Knoxville south to farm in Sweetwater, Tennessee, 50 miles. I'm familiar with both places. Should be the same growing zone. So, best time to transplant your native raspberry plants, I would do that again in the fall, because it is kind of a woodier species. A lot of its root growth, it's going to become very resilient if you can plant it after everything has gone dormant. And it's going to be a little bit babied, a little bit top heavy as well if you plant it in the spring. So I would plant them in the fall, and that should be, good thing to do. Will bone sauce work on deer all winter? Two neighbors feed the deer. That's from Mary Jane. Bone sauce should work. Like the claims for bone sauce from like Austria and stuff are like, if you apply it to a wooden surface, it should last 25 years. Now that being said, I haven't been there to test it for 25 years, but it should, like, if you apply it once, it should last at the very, very least a year. And if you notice like decrease in effectiveness, then just apply it again. But it definitely should last you all winter for sure. Any thoughts on Jadam or Korean natural farming methods? That's from Stephen Paul. Yeah, Jadam doesn't make any doggone sense to me. I guess like directly applying your nutrients to your plant so they can soak that up. That part does make. I mean, that part makes sense. Meaning like that would work to fertilize your plants directly that way. But it seems like you still get stuck in that constant, like you're stuck in that constant fertilizing loop. Like you still have to keep making those amendments and then applying them to your garden. Make the amendments, applying them to the garden. Instead, I'm trying to find, if at all possible, a permanent solution that takes me out of the equation. And that permanent solution seems to be developing this soil food web, which is aerobic system. Jadam methods seem to be largely anaerobic. I'm not saying that they don't work. It's just not what I'm going for. I'm going for a more passive way to garden. Like I'm looking to do it in a way where it takes me out, or it involves me as least as possible or as little as possible. And Jadam gets you stuck in that, constant fertilizing loop. So hopefully that answers the question. I'm not talking down on Jadam. It's definitely a method that seems to work. I know there's a lot of people that use it that have YouTube channels, and it seems to work very, very well for them. It's just I'm looking for a more permanent solution. Chris Chubb for MN. Coneflower is on sale right now in my area. What are some good companion plants for them? I have no idea, man. Coneflowers in general, you could. I would put them, since it is going to attract pollinators and stuff, I would put them around or surrounding areas where you intend to grow food. So I don't focus too much on companion planting. Like I said before, I focus more on the soil biology. So I don't care. Like Dr. Elaine Ingham makes a good point to say that like you should be able to plant one plant right next to another plant that both have different soil requirements, as long as it's not like a brassica. Brassica requires actinobacteria to actually fertilize itself or to get fertility. So outside of brassicas, you should be able to plant everything right next to each other. And the only competition should be for sunlight, not for nutrients or anything, but for sunlight, because each plant is going to put out exudates. That's the doggone word. Each plant is going to put out exudates instead of sugar. Exudates, sugar is the same thing. They're each going to put out specific exudates depending on what it is they need. The soil microorganisms go and get that from the inorganic material. They break it down and then they eat it. And then the plant still doesn't get the nutrients. That organism then has to be eaten by a predator and pooped out before the plant actually benefits. So that's where this whole soil food web comes into play. That's where you need like all layers of the soil food web. You can't just have, let's say, to make it a macro scale, you can't just have the wood mice. You need also like the fox that's going to eat the wood mice, the hawk that's going to eat the fox, and then the hawk at that point is the top of the food chain until it dies, falls to the ground, and the organisms break that down, and then it full cycle again. But you need all layers of that soil food web. On to the next one. Kimber Carey. Hey, William, I'm late to class. Can I make compost from just grass clippings and chicken house clean out? I do deep litter method in the chicken house with wood chips from Tractor Supply. Yes, you can. The downside again is going to be the wood chips. The wood chips from Tractor Supply are like 300 to 500 to 1 as far as the carbon to nitrogen ratio. So you are not going to get like finished compost at the end of the cycle, but you can definitely get compost material on the outside of those wood chips. It's not going to be the best for a planting medium in your raised beds, but it's going to be really good as like a surface dressing or a mulch around your trees. But yeah, you can definitely make compost with those 3 ingredients. Just remember, the better or the more diverse your inputs are, the more diverse in soil biology your end result is going to be. So try to make it as diverse as possible. Try to include some kitchen scraps on there as well. Jeremy Elazar, great content, William. I'm just getting interested in raising just a few chickens. Is there a comprehensive guide on chickens that might help me make a decision on what breeds to get? I'm in upstate New York. I don't know. There might be a comprehensive guide somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure. What I would do is mimic whatever breed, like go around you, find a farm around you, find somebody who's raising animals in the way that you want to raise them. And then I would get the same breed that they have, or at least see if they could hatch some chicks for you and raise them raise the same breed that they have. Find out what does well in your area, because I guarantee you there is a chicken that does well in upstate New York. And then just do that. Mimic what somebody else is doing that you want to mimic. Simon Pearman, does it make sense to try and cultivate wild berries, blackberries in particular? That depends. If you are, so blackberries in particular, I wouldn't, based on where I am right now, and even in North Carolina, I wouldn't worry about cultivating necessarily blackberries because they are so rampant and you can find them just wild pretty easily, usually in pretty close proximity to yourself as well. But in a circumstances where I would replicate those or I would cultivate those is if I wanted to plant them closer. Like if I'm having to get in the car and drive to the location to harvest blackberries, then yeah, just take some cuttings, root those guys, and then plant them at your house. So that way you can eliminate the driving aspect. But if they're within walking distance, then I would not worry about it. I wouldn't worry about wasting real estate on the blackberries. If they're growing somewhere else wild and it requires no maintenance on your end, requires no watering on your end, and requires only harvest on your end, then just leave them wild, harvest from them. But if you want them closer, then go ahead and cultivate them. And that's the circumstance where I would do it. Let's see what else is on here. Colleen Bowman, for our new garden that we cleared out of a bunch of trees for next year, we are growing clover. What about hemp from the chicken run to cover in the fall? So if you're talking about growing hemp as a cover crop, that is a very, very fast way to build soil. And also gives you a whole lot of composting material once you're ready to chop down the hemp. Also, not just composting material, but you can also make a whole bunch of stuff from hemp. You can make your own CBD if you wanted to, depending on the variety of hemp that you had. You can make your own rope. You can make your own fibers. You can make your own clothes. You can make all kinds of stuff out of hemp. Make your own, I think I said that already, rope. I was going to say that. But yeah, you have a bunch of opportunities out of hemp. Seabiscuit, I got the Garden8 app on your recommendation and love it. Thanks. Nasri William, does permaculture promote no-till farming? Typically, yeah. Permaculture stands for permanent agriculture, or not even just permanent agriculture, but also permanent culture in general. But most people focus or emphasize the permanent agriculture aspect of permaculture. So if you're constantly tilling, that kind of takes the permanency out of it. Tilling is going to, like if you're constantly doing it, you're going to be destroying the soil biology that you've spent all up until that point building. So try to minimize the amount of tilling that you do, and also question the reason that you are tilling. Tilling also creates a compaction layer deep down into the soil. So it might be a little counterproductive to be tilling in the long run. It might, like, for example, the raised beds over the demonstration site. I tilled earlier this year, and that's going to be probably the only time that I till in that garden, unless I want to reshape everything. Tilling is really, really good for reshaping beds if you want to, or breaking in some new ground and just getting it to the point where you can plant in the soil, depending on what the soil is like. But keep in mind, you are creating a compaction layer. So I try not to. Permaculture does promote no-till farming, I guess I should say. There, that answers your question. Vicky Savage, if I add rock dust like azomite to replenish the minerals, would it help the soil life? No, it wouldn't. All of the, especially where you already have enough rock dust in that soil. If you add, instead, what I would do, what would be a better additive to your soil is actually something like, well, obviously compost tea would be really good, but something you could just purchase and add to your soil is like humic acid. That's going to feed the fungal life in your soil, and it's going to be a really good, like a little goes a long way as far as humic acid goes. So keep that in mind. Like other things that might help are like, it depends on what you're trying to feed and what you're trying to grow. But if you're trying to grow bacteria, fish emulsion would be a good one. If you're trying to grow like fungi, then humic acid or fulvic acid would be a really good one. J Bar S Photography, is there an email I can contact you through? Yes, thepermacultureconsultant@gmail.com. So the name of the channel @gmail.com is a good way. If you guys need consultations, then hit me up through there. If you have any questions that you just want answered, hit me up through there. If you want a permaculture Q&A question answered live, or not live, but on a future video, like if you want a whole dedicated video that you want answered, then go ahead and leave it on the comment section of one of the past videos or any future videos. But the email is thepermacultureconsultant@gmail.com. Austin Trees. I've tried covering the ground with cardboard and then applying compost on top and wood chips. For some reason, in a few areas, when I dig into it over a year later, that area is swampy underneath. Well, that might be due to the soil that's underneath the compost and the cardboard. Let's say it's that Play-Doh type clay that we have over here in North Carolina. You might need to broad fork it first, like introduce a little bit of air into the area first before adding your compost and your cardboard on top of that. Other than that, it might just be the location. It might be a low spot that just accumulates water, in which case the solution is to either broad fork and then allow your soil organisms to then flocculate the clay and stuff, create aggregates, or you could drill holes, something like that. But I would try to figure out a way to penetrate that compaction layer beneath it, because it's not allowing adequate water flow through the soil. And then you later say, but it's not an area that pulls water in any way. Any clue what could be the issue? I would say just a severe lack of soil biology in that case, especially if there's cardboard still existing. If you have cardboard there and it's a year later, then you have almost no soil life. Like in North Carolina, for example, if we put cardboard down on the ground, it's going to be gone in a couple of weeks, if not a couple of months, depending on the season. But I would say that there's absolutely no soil life, and maybe the compost that you put down, if you purchased it, then there is no soil life involved. And if you made it yourself, maybe is the wrong application of season. Maybe try to apply it during the wet season next time. But just give it some time. Just give it some time. The compost will, or the soil microbes will eventually come into play. The worms will eventually find out that you brought cardboard to the equation, and they'll start coming in and breaking everything down, making the exchange and all that stuff. Got one from Forrest Smith. Why does bone sauce work? Why don't deer like it? Probably because it's made from animal bones. Like if I had the nose of a deer and I walked up to a tree that had bone sauce on it, I would instantly be thinking, wow, somebody killed something, took all its bones, burnt it, and then applied it to this tree. I'm not coming anywhere near this place. That's what I think it would be like if I was the perspective from a deer. That's what I think is probably going on in their head. I don't know why it works, but it definitely does work. I have no idea why. What time zone are you in right now, Texas or North Carolina? I am in East Texas, so Central Time. Got any advice on using waste spread from gun-related vids? I like your channel name. Advice on using waste spread. You could get, if you have pigs, you could give it to your pigs. If you have chickens, you could give it to your chickens. Otherwise, you could put it just like, also vermicompost. You could feed it to your worms if you wanted to, but it could also go to your like compost. It could count as your kitchen scraps and go to your compost. Seabiscuit, will bone sauce work on squirrels? They eat all my something. They eat all your something. Yeah, Danny and Wanda actually, they painted socks with the bone sauce and then they tossed it up in their tree. I can't remember what, I think it's a mulberry tree. Tossed it up in their tree and it kept the squirrels away. So that is at least one person vouching for it keeping squirrels away. Don Rarig, hi, I live in Mississippi. Most of the time it rains constantly. Is there any way to keep mildew from taking hold on your plants? I've changed my soil and pruned heavily and still lost half of my plants. So keeping mildew away from your plants, part of it, okay. Part of it is going to be keeping adequate airflow through your garden. So that's one thing. Another thing is if, again, your soil biology, let's say you take your, um, let's say you take your corn plant, right? And you plant it as a seed into your soil. If your soil is alive, as the corn plant grows up, it's going to be inoculated with all that beneficial bacteria, fungi, all that stuff. And if you were to look at the leaf of that corn plant underneath the microscope, if it's grown in proper biologically active soil, it should be covered in bacteria and fungi and the glues that they use to keep themselves attached to that plant. If that's the case, then there is no place for your mildew to actually inhabit. It's going to be outcompeted by the aerobic fungi and the aerobic bacteria that's in that location. That's why spraying milk on your trees works at getting rid of like fungal attacks on your trees or bacteria attacks on your trees, because the bacteria in the milk is going to outcompete anything else that's on that tree, and it's going to kill it off and outcompete. Like I just said, it's going to outcompete everything else that's on that tree. So I would make, in your situation, I would make really, really good compost, send it in to somebody who will check the biology levels of that compost, me here before too long. And then I would do a compost tea and spray, or a compost extract, and drench your garden beds with that. So that way you can keep the defenses up on your existing plants and not allow mildew to grow. Now, mildew will grow if you let the conditions of that area go anaerobic again. Mildew can only grow in anaerobic conditions, so keep it aerobic and it should be good to go. Let's move on to the next one. Have you ever planted the Three Sisters? Yeah, I think I remember doing it one time with Mom a while back. And the biggest issue with the Three Sisters is the timing of things, because you can't plant your beans too early before your corn stalks are thick enough. Otherwise, your beans are just going to knock your corn stalks down. So you almost have to wait till your corn stalks are almost fully grown, but not too grown where they outshade your bean vines. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's a bit of a timing issue that I've noticed. So yeah, there's that. There's also the fourth sister, which is sunflowers. Vicky Savage, salmon that die to spawn are a major source of nutrients in the entire ecosystem that they affect. You're right. Palmetto Paratrooper, what's up, y'all? Cat B says, Seabiscuit, I got the bone sauce as an experiment. No deer in suburbia, but lots of squirrels. I smeared it on the trunks of several peaches and plum trees, and we have lost no more fruits on those. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So, yeah, it does work on squirrels. William, if you want to see rampant blackberries, go to the Pacific Northwest. They are so thick that the birds, bears, and bugs can't keep up, and most will raisin on the plant. That's awesome. I was just a couple months ago, I was at a consultation up in Tennessee, and it was near the Dragon's Tail. I can't remember the name of the town, but it's like a suburb of Knoxville. But there's this bike road called Dragon's Tail, and it's like, I forget how many hundred turns there are on this one road going up to this ridgeline. But we were up at the top of the ridgeline, and we were eating some of the wild blueberries up there. Anyways, your comment reminded me of that. And the wild little blueberries up there were so doggone sweet, and like more blueberry tasting than any blueberry I've ever had before. Alyssa Rodman, hey William, how can one reach you to request a consultation? Sorry if the question has already been asked, just late getting on here. Just shoot me an email at thepermacultureconsultant@gmail.com. Almost forgot my own email for a second. But the permacultureconsultant@gmail.com. That's the way you can reach me. If you have any questions, you can also reach me through that email. But yeah, that's the way you contact me for a consultation. And depending on where you are, right now would be a good time to contact me, because I might be very close to your area here before too long, which will give you a discounted rate unless I'm making it like a dedicated trip to your property. Mark Belcher, hi William, I am on a third of an acre suburban lot in Hickory, North Carolina, trying to restore soil life all over my property. I have a huge pile of fresh wood, chips from a cut down water oak, and 3 years of oak leaves. My challenge is green material for compost pile. Been using grass clippings but need more. Recommended plant for lots of green biomass. Also want to grow green stuff under my own oak tree, and not much is thriving there naturally. Would like to sow something there. maybe try. Okay, so the first thing, I'll start with the latest question, was the growing around your oak tree. Maybe try something that tolerates a whole lot of shade, but also something that requires a whole lot of shade. So one thing that you could do is grow maybe some black currants, depending on what kind of oak tree and how spread out the limbs are. You could do black currants. You could grow clover there if you wanted to. You might even be able to get away with strawberries because there might be enough filtered light for the strawberries to still produce fruit. You could do ground cherries and stuff like that. So try those things out. Also, you could always do your herbs. You could always do thyme, oregano, rosemary around your oak tree. As far as more green material, comfrey. So buy comfrey from Permaculture's farm. If you have one plant, you never have to buy comfrey again because one plant can easily propagate 80 new comfrey plants. So that produces a lot of biomass, a lot of green biomass very quickly. But as far as other green material, it kind of you kind of have to be resourceful. Maybe try to find, like, if you see any landscaping crews that are bagging up some of their green material or some of the grass clippings from their area, then maybe try to get some of theirs. It's okay if it's dried out. But yeah, grass clippings is kind of the easiest way to get green material that's also been chopped up pretty well. Now, the downside of using grass clippings is that it will compact in your compost pile and create an anaerobic layer. So whenever you flip it, you have to make sure you break up those compacted clumps. Hopefully that helps out with your question. A budding enthusiast, would you recommend the milk spray over copper fungicide for peach leaf curl? Yes, I would. Depending on what stage that you catch it in will determine the effectiveness of it. But let's say you catch it late in the stages, then go ahead and go with the copper fungicide. Try not to allow any of it to hit the soil because you don't want to kill any of the fungi in the soil. You only want to kill that bad stuff that's on the surface of the leaf. A lot of people say once the peach leaf curl sets in, that's the end of your peach tree. I beg to differ. There's quite a few peach trees at the demonstration site that that are still alive. Stephen Paul, any advice for getting rid of crickets in garden beds? I actually just did that in a permaculture Q&A question not too long ago. But yeah, your ducks, your chickens properly rotated. Like if you just have free range chickens and they hit your garden, they're not going to be very effective at killing your crickets and grasshoppers. What will be effective is if you take those chickens and then you allow them to hit very small areas at a time right before evening, because you don't want them to have a heavy impact in your garden because that's going to cause some issues. They're going to go through and wreak havoc in your garden if given enough time. If they're given a very short window to graze through your garden right before sunset, then they're only going to go after things that are moving. They're only going to go after like the bug species and stuff. So try to time it that way. That should give you some pretty good results and give your chickens a pretty good snack. Also, you can invite ducks to the party if you wanted to. But yeah, got one from Rick Thelian. Hello there. Hello, everyone. DE says herbs under a big oak tree would work for sure. Vicky Savage says hosta is very shade tolerant. You're absolutely right. Rick Thelian, yeah, you're right. It was answered in the last video. All righty, guys. That was an hour-long live permaculture Q&A. Any more questions that you guys have, you'll have to leave it in a prior or future video. If you guys liked this live permaculture Q&A, go ahead and give it a thumbs up if you don't mind. I appreciate everybody joining me in today's live stream. Don't forget, we have a homesteaders meetup this weekend. And then also, if you want to see more of me, Emily, and the baby, we will be at the homesteaders. I keep wanting to say homesteaders Jubilee, the homesteaders Jamboree, Homesteaders United Jamboree over in North Carolina at the end of the month. But yeah, look forward to seeing you guys over there. Can't wait to do another live. This was fun. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me. And I'm going to go ahead and get off of here and drink a whole bunch of water. See you guys.